Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about a story that is shaking global politics, the kind of shift that changes the way nations look at each other. A story titled "The Damage is Done. India will no longer trust America." This is not just about two countries, it is about geopolitics, foreign policy, and the future balance of power. The United States and India have often been called natural partners, but the truth is that trust between India and the United States has been broken. And once broken, it is almost impossible to restore. On the surface, the relationship between India and America has always looked strong. The exterior was polished with meetings between Indian prime ministers and American presidents, joint military exercises showcasing U.S. fighter jets and Indian warships, defense deals signed with pride, and speeches about shared values of democracy and freedom. The world was told that U.S.-India relations would define the 21st century, a partnership that could counter China, stabilize Asia, and fuel economic growth. But in international relations, the exterior often hides the interior, and when we look deeper, the reality is very different. Inside the partnership, the cracks have always existed. During the Cold War, Washington chose Pakistan as its ally, pouring billions of dollars into its military even as Pakistan sponsored terrorism and fought wars against India. America's foreign policy was never about supporting India. It was about using Pakistan to serve U.S. interests in Afghanistan and the Middle East. Even in the 1990s, when India tested nuclear weapons for its own defense, the United States punished India with sanctions instead of understanding its security concerns. For India, the message was clear. The United States was a superpower that acted for itself, not for its so-called friends. This interior reality showed India that America's trustworthiness was always conditional, never absolute. When it comes to performance, the numbers looked good, but the reality fell short. Trade between India and the United States grew, defense sales expanded to billions, and American companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin entered the Indian market. Indian students filled U.S. universities, and Indian tech workers powered Silicon Valley. On paper, U.S.-India cooperation was impressive, but in performance during crises, Washington often disappointed. After the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks, when India expected the United States to isolate Pakistan, Washington still supported Islamabad for its own war on terror. When border tensions with China escalated, America gave statements but offered no concrete backing. And on trade, Washington often turned against India, raising tariffs, restricting visas, and blocking deals. Performance in statistics was strong, but performance in trust and reliability was weak. America often claimed to be India's safety partner, the shield against regional threats, but that shield came with heavy conditions. Washington pressured India to reduce energy imports from Iran, despite India's dependence on Iranian oil and trade routes. When India bought the Russian S-400 missile defense system, America threatened sanctions under CA-TISA, forcing New Delhi to choose between national security and American approval. U.S. defense deals always came with restrictions, limited technology transfers, and constant monitoring. Safety that depends on another country's permission is not real safety, and India learned that its security must be in its own hands. The unique selling points of America seemed attractive at first. The promise of advanced defense technology, support in the United Nations, access to the American market, and the image of a strategic partnership were tempting. But over time, India discovered that these selling points came with strings attached. Technology was never fully transferred, support in global institutions was selective, and American markets were closed off whenever it suited Washington's domestic politics. Even the image of partnership lost value when the United States openly criticized India on human rights, democracy, and domestic policy, while ignoring its own internal issues. India realized that these so-called unique advantages were no longer unique, and in fact, other partners like Russia, France, Japan, and the European Union often offered more dependable cooperation. But the real breaking point lies in the price. The price of trusting America has been too high for India. The cost was paid in foreign policy compromises, in economic losses from trade disputes, and in the endless balancing act of trying to satisfy Washington while protecting India's own interests. India lost access to Iranian oil and trade routes because of U.S. sanctions. India faced tariffs on its exports despite being called a partner. India was constantly told to reduce ties with Russia, even though Russian weapons remain critical to Indian defense. The price of this partnership has not just been financial, but also political, forcing India to bend in ways that hurt its independence. In the end, the cost of trusting America outweighed the benefits. Today, the damage is clear. India has lost faith in America's promises and is building a future where its trust will no longer be placed blindly in Washington. India is investing in its own defense industry, developing indigenous fighter jets, missiles, and naval power. It is deepening its ties with Russia, refusing to abandon Moscow despite U.S. pressure. It is strengthening relations with Europe, Japan, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia to create a web of partnerships that cannot be broken by American sanctions. On energy, India continues to buy discounted Russian oil, showing that its economy comes first, not Washington's agenda. On trade, India is cautious, refusing to open itself fully to American demands. The lesson has been learned, and it will not be forgotten. The Indian public has also shifted. Where once there was pride that America recognized India as a partner, today there is skepticism and caution. Every new statement from Washington is judged against past betrayals. Analysts in New Delhi warned that America does not see India as an equal but as a tool in its strategy against China. Politicians from across parties now speak about self-reliance, about strategic autonomy, about never being dependent on any one power. Trust has been replaced by calculation, and calculation tells India that America cannot be relied upon. For the United States, this is a serious loss. In an age where China is rising as a global superpower, America needs India more than ever. But by treating India as a junior partner, by threatening sanctions, by putting conditions on every deal, Washington has lost the trust that mattered most. No amount of trade deals, defense exercises, or diplomatic statements can replace genuine trust. The geopolitical damage is irreversible, and it will shape global politics for decades. The future will still see India and America cooperate in certain areas, because both sides need each other in trade, technology, and balancing China. But the relationship will never again be what it could have been. India will cooperate on its own terms, always keeping its options open, always protecting its independence. Washington will continue to court New Delhi, but the trust is gone, replaced by cold calculation. Other nations will take note, realizing that U.S. alliances are transactional, conditional, and fragile. And this brings us to the conclusion. Once trust is broken, it cannot be repaired easily. The exterior of the U.S.-India relationship still shines in front of cameras, but the interior tells another story. Performance has been inconsistent, safety has been unreliable, the unique selling points are no longer convincing, and the price of dependence has been far too high. The damage is done, and India will no longer trust America as it once did. This is not a temporary rift, but a permanent shift. One that will change the future of Asia, the balance of power, and the very foundation of geopolitics. America may hope to repair the relationship, but India has already moved on, building its own path where no foreign power decides its fate. The world is now entering a new era, an era where India will act not as a junior partner to America, but as an independent power shaping its own destiny. Washington has lost something it may never regain, and New Delhi has gained something far more valuable, the clarity that trust in America is not a safe investment. Trust was the currency of this partnership, and now that trust is gone, the rules of the game have changed forever. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the upcoming latest conflict.